It ends with us in court. Blake Lively is suing her co-star and director Justin Baldoni, accusing him of sexual harassment on the set of the smash hit It Ends With Us, and orchestrating a retaliatory smear campaign to tarnish her reputation. In response to Lively's lawsuit, Baldoni filed a $250 million slap lawsuit against the New York Times for publishing Lively's accusations, claiming they are false and part of her own smear campaign against him. Yes, you heard that right. 2 stars of a blockbuster romantic drama about breaking the cycle of abuse are now headed to court over an alleged cycle of abuse.
Hey, stop it. Stop it.
Life always finds a way to imitate art, doesn't it? But Lively alleges that Baldoni improvised physical intimacy during their scenes without her prior agreement, kissing and touching her without her consent. She claims Baldoni repeatedly made inappropriate comments about her body, presented numerous photos and videos of naked women to her for no reasonable professional purpose, initiated inappropriate discussions about his pornography addiction and sexual history, and pressed her to be nude from the chest down, save for a small strip of fabric to cover her genitals, while filming a birthing scene despite her prior protest. And that's just apparently the tip of the iceberg. Lively claims that after she complained about the hostile environment, Baldoni and his production company launched a covert digital campaign to destroy her reputation and suppress valid criticism of Baldoni's bad behavior. If this is indeed true, then the conspiracy was certainly effective. When It Ends With Us premiered in August, the tide of social media sentiment abruptly shifted against Lively. Overnight, it seemed that internet mobs decided Lively was a bully, a diva, and notoriously difficult to work with on set. But mere weeks after Lively's lawsuit in December, Baldoni played an Uno reverse card suing the New York Times for $250 million for their role in Lively's alleged mastermind scheme to destroy his reputation and suppress valid criticism of her own bad behavior. If nothing else, Baldoni has a lot of self-confidence for a man best known for playing the boyfriend on Jane the Virgin.
Everyone is the hero in their own story.
So what's going on here? Who are we to believe, and what happens next? Well, today we're going to be diving deep into sexual harassment lawsuits, retaliation, and the most important things to understand about cases like this that the media keeps getting wrong every single time this happens. Now, It Ends With Us is a movie based on a Colleen Hoover novel about domestic violence. The 2 main characters are Ryle Kincaid and Lily Blossom Bloom, 2 character names that even Charles Dickens would be embarrassed to use. But Ryle is quick to get riled up and beat her, while Lily Blossom Bloom owns a successful flower shop, and only by leaving her abusive marriage will Lily Blossom Bloom ever figuratively bloom herself. If you've seen the movie, you know it gets less subtle from there. In this scene, Lily is grieving her dead father while hanging out on a New York City rooftop. She meets Ryle, a neurosurgeon who is grieving the death of his 6-year-old patient. And Baldoni bangs open the door and kicks the chair, so you know he's angry. Spectacular. Tommy Wiseau level acting from Justin Baldoni.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not.
This is a man who wants you to know that he is acting.
It's a strong chair.
But luckily, Lily and Ryle aren't too sad for flirting.
What do you do for a living?
Neurosurgeon. Is that funny?
This movie is just really, really terrible. And yet somehow it became a runaway hit, presumably earning massive back-end paychecks for Lively and Baldoni. And an even more financially lucrative sequel was all but assured to be rushed into production. That is, until torrid behind-the-scenes drama spilled out into the public. Baldoni produced, directed, and starred in this movie. Co-star Blake Lively now alleges that after production wrapped, he then engineered a smear campaign against her as retaliation for her calling out his alleged professional and sexual misconduct on set to the media, which he counterclaims are gross mischaracterizations of what actually happened. While these kinds of allegations are rare in the grand scheme of the thousands of movies that are produced every year, they are more common on the sets of movies that tell sexually charged stories. And It Ends With Us is definitely a sexy movie with a lot of sexy sex.
Your frittata's burning. The first guy I had sex with was homeless.
Stop. Tell me more.
I actually think we're supposed to say temporarily unhomed.
Can't top that. That was both sexy and disturbing.
Now, it shouldn't matter what type of content is being shot, but that hasn't stopped unscrupulous actors in the past, pardon the pun, from suggesting in the court of public opinion that their victims failed to discern reality from the sexually charged fictional scenes. That often leads to the public to interpret claims like this as juicy he said, she said gossip, and tabloids make millions perpetuating the endless speculative narratives. Now, as the details of these 2 lawsuits hit the internet, many fans of the book started dividing themselves into 2 camps, Team Lively and Team Baldoni. This happens all the time, especially because the media routinely frames sexual misconduct lawsuits as a contest between two people. Though in Lively's complaint, she claims there are witnesses to most of the events depicted. Now, the main players in Lively's lawsuit include Justin Baldoni, the movie's director and co-chair of Wayfarer Studios, and producer Jamie Heath, the CEO of Wayfarer Entertainment. Quote, as studio head and director, all actors, crew, and staff on the film, including Miss Lively, answered to Mr. Baldoni. The hierarchy matters because Baldoni described himself as being at the top of the totem pole during the making of the movie, which could mean that he was legally responsible for what happened on set. Wayfarer Entertainment positions itself as a, quote, cause-driven media studio focusing on creating content that highlights inspiration, unity, and the power of human connection. And Baldoni hosts a podcast called Man Enough, where he discusses toxic masculinity. And the complaint alleges that Baldoni wanted to use the film about domestic violence to further his image. Quote, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath have positioned Wayfarer as a male feminist platform that explores gender roles, dismantles toxic masculinity, and creates a safer, judgment-free society for women. Production on the film started in May of 2023. Lively says during the first 6 weeks of production, Baldoni created a hostile work environment antithetical to the values Baldoni expressed in the public. Lively alleges that Baldoni, Heath, and Wayfarer Studios ignored industry standards with respect to nudity and sexual scenes. In recent years, production companies increasingly hire a position called an intimacy coordinator, who are trained and certified by the Screen Actors Guild to act as a liaison between on-screen talent and behind-the-camera staff, ensuring that intimate scenes are conducted safely, respectfully, while also fulfilling the vision of the director. The complaint alleges that without such protections in place, Baldoni felt free to improvise. Quote, for instance, Mr. Baldoni discreetly bit and sucked on Miss Lively's lower lip during a scene in which he improvised numerous kisses on each take. Mr. Baldoni insisted on shooting the full scene over and over again, well beyond what would have been required on an ordinary set and without advance notice or consent. Or at least the number that's not required by anyone who isn't named David Fincher. And the complaint alleges that when the two filmed a scene of the two characters dancing with no dialogue for a montage, Baldoni allegedly broke character, quote, at one point he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ears and down her neck as he said, it smells so good.
And I definitely want to kiss you again.
Well, that I can do.
Lively says when she objected to his behavior, he retorted, quote, I'm not even attracted to you. Lively claims that Baldoni then added graphic sex scenes to the script without her knowledge or consent, quote, including a scene in which Miss Lively was to orgasm on camera. She objected, but he lectured her on how he was making something for the female gaze, so it was a good thing. Although Baldoni removed that scene, he allegedly continued to add new ones. Quote, Mr. Baldoni then intrusively asked Miss Lively whether she and her husband climaxed simultaneously during intercourse, which Miss Lively found invasive and refused to discuss. During a scene when her character gives birth, Baldoni and Heath insisted that Lively perform the scene naked. Lively claims Baldoni said his wife had ripped her clothes off during labor, and it was not normal to wear a hospital gown during birth. Hey, guess what women love? When men lecture them about the right and wrong way to give birth. But, quote, Miss Lively disagreed but felt forced into a compromise that she would be naked from below the chest down. When the birth scene was filmed, the set was chaotic, crowded, and utterly lacking in standard industry protections for filming nude scenes, including turning off the monitors so the scene was not broadcast to all crew on set, including personal phones and iPads connected to the camera feed. Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni also failed to close the set, allowing non-essential crew to pass through while Miss Lively was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. Lively says the production did not give her anything to cover herself with until they had already shot multiple takes. She alleges that Baldoni cast his best friend for the role of the OBGYN rather than using a local actor. Lively said that she felt humiliated by the non-professional actor who had his hands and face in her intimate areas throughout the scene. And allegedly on the day of the shoot, Heath took out his phone and showed Lively and her assistant a video of a woman with her legs spread. When Lively objected to seeing the video, Heath said it was a video of his wife giving birth, and Heath allegedly told Lively that his own wife isn't weird about this stuff, unlike Lively and her assistant. Now, Baldoni responds to these allegations in his lawsuit against the New York Times, and he says, quote, the claim is patently absurd. The video in question was a non-pornographic recording of Heath's wife and baby during a home birth, a deeply personal one with no sexual overtone. And the complaint includes a screenshot of Heath's wife's water birth. But the list of complaints sadly goes on. Now, obviously, if you're gonna run a sketchy movie production, you're gonna want a good lawyer. But if you want a great lawyer, my law firm, the Eagle Team, can help. If you've gotten in a car crash, suffered a data breach, especially if you've gotten those data breach letters saying that your information might have been leaked, or dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney. It's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can maximize your recovery. And by the way, we don't get paid unless you do, so there's nothing up front. So just click on the link in the description or call the phone number that's on screen right now for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team. So click or call below. Now, the Me Too movement might have inspired more people to report sexual harassment at work, but the basic outlines of sexual harassment law haven't changed since the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In Title VII of this act, the term sexual harassment is understood to be a subset of sex discrimination, which is unconstitutional. Sex discrimination is when a person is treated unfavorably in their employment, specifically because of their sex. And there are generally two types of sexual harassment: quid pro quo sexual harassment and hostile work environment sexual harassment. A hostile work environment occurs when an employee is subjected to unwelcome physical or verbal conduct of a sexual nature that is so severe or pervasive as to alter the employee's working conditions or create an abusive work environment. Now, the Supreme Court has said that Title VII is not a general civility code for the American workplace. Quote, whatever evidentiary route the plaintiff chooses to follow, he or she must always prove that the conduct at issue was not merely tinged with offensive sexual connotations, but actually constituted discrimination because of sex. Now, the standard rule of thumb here is that conduct by subordinate peers or superiors that is reasonably deemed unwelcomed by an employee is prohibited. Now, the core of Lively's complaint is that she and other members of the cast and crew found Baldoni's conduct unacceptable and informed him that it was unwelcome. In one alleged instance, when Baldoni was riding in a car with Lively and her assistant driver, he started a conversation about his experience being abused by a girlfriend. He allegedly said that this forced him to reconsider the other's experiences. Quote, did I always ask for consent? No. Did I always listen to what they said? No. Lively claimed to be unsettled by this conversation. Quote, when Miss Lively exited the car, her driver immediately remarked that he did not want Miss Lively to be alone with Mr. Baldoni going forward. Lively allegedly sought a meeting with Heath and Baldoni after a disagreement over wardrobe, but she claims Baldoni showed up at her dressing room when she was topless and having her body makeup removed by makeup artists. She claimed she wouldn't let him in until she was fully clothed. Baldoni allegedly pressured her to let him in, insisting that he wouldn't allow her to meet with other producers if she wouldn't speak to him right then. She relented, but insisted that he keep his back turned. But according to Lively, he turned around and ogled her topless body. Quote, Miss Lively and her hair and makeup artist were all deeply disturbed by this interaction, and that was just the second day of filming. Lively also claims that she and her 4-month-old also contracted COVID after Baldoni and Heath failed to warn her she had been exposed to the virus. And another producer allegedly told Lively that they didn't implement COVID protocols on set because the production wasn't insured for it. Lively also alleges the two men were, quote, also constantly hugging and touching cast and crew. Lively said when she and other people avoided or objected to this touching, Heath and Baldoni, quote, would retaliate by becoming irritated, cold, and uncollaborative. The result was an unwelcoming and mercurial environment for Miss Lively, her employees, and others on set. And, quote, on another day, Miss Lively wore a low-cut dress to facilitate breastfeeding, but had it covered up with a coat. When the jacket briefly popped open at one point to reveal the dress, Mr. Baldoni commented about how much he liked her outfit, which flustered Miss Lively. Later that day, Mr. Baldoni pressured Miss Lively, who was in her pre-approved wardrobe, to remove her coat in front of the crew and multiple background actors in a packed bar. He said he wanted to see her onesie under the coat because it was zipped low to reveal her lace bra. Lively alleges, quote, as a result of Mr. Baldoni's behavior, on May 29, 2023, another cast member lodged a sexual harassment complaint about Mr. Baldoni's gross and unwanted comments towards her and others. The New York Times reported that because of this and many other instances that followed, Lively eventually walked from the set, following immediately by filing a formal HR complaint outlining the conditions that needed to change for her to return to work. These apparently included the immediate hire of an intimacy coordinator, that, quote, no more images of videos of nude women are to be shown to her, and Baldoni and Heath would cease all mentions of cast and crew genitalia. In Baldoni's lawsuit, he claims that no such complaint was ever filed with HR, nor was he ever informed of any of Lively's grievances. Now, according to the complaint, quote, Wayfarer failed to provide Miss Lively with even rudimentary employment protections, such as an employee handbook, sexual harassment policy, information or any training on sexual harassment, discrimination, or respectful workplace expectations. Lively says that she and other employees tried to address their concerns directly with Heath and Baldoni, but they were unwilling to correct their own behavior. Lively says that she then approached Sony and told them that she wanted to file an HR complaint about Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's misconduct. Sony was the distributor of the film, and a Sony representative told her that Sony, quote, was not empowered to control Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath's behavior on set, and that such concerns must be raised with Wayfarer, the studio responsible for the production. So when production geared up to resume in late 2023, Lively's lawyers negotiated an agreement called, quote, Protections for Return to Production. That negotiation apparently culminated in an all-hands meeting on January 4th, 2024. Sony, Wayfarer, and other producers said in writing that, quote, Wayfarer, Sony, and production respectfully acknowledge that Miss Lively has concerns regarding safety, professionalism, and workplace culture. Although our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring a safe environment for all is paramount, irrespective of differing viewpoints. Regarding your outlined requests, we find most of them not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved. The parties then apparently executed a contractual rider that was executed on January 19th, 2024. And that rider says, an intimacy coordinator must be on set, There is to be no spontaneous improvising of any scenes involving physical touching, simulated sex, or nudity. There must be a closed set during the rehearsal or filming of any scene involving simulated sex or nudity, and any observation via remote monitors shall be restricted to essential personnel as approved by Lively. There are to be no discussions of personal experiences with sex or nudity, including as it relates to conduct with spouses or others. A Sony representative must be on set. Wayfarer will engage an additional experienced A-level producer approved by Miss Lively to actively supervise the production. Now, Baldoni, unsurprisingly, has pushed back against the conclusion that this contract is an admission of liability. He says Wayfarer was already providing a safe environment with appropriate safeguards, but his assertion is undercut somewhat by Wayfarer's lawyer, who wrote that, quote, "While our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring a safe environment for all involved is paramount, irrespective of differing viewpoints. Regarding your outline requests, we find most of them not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved." Under the revised contract, the parties agreed, quote, "There shall be no retaliation of any kind against Miss Lively for raising concerns about the conduct described in this letter or for these requirements. Any changes in attitude, sarcasm, marginalization, or other negative behavior, either on set or otherwise, including during publicity and promotional work, as a result of these requests is retaliatory and unacceptable and will be met with immediate action." And Title VII also prohibits an employer from retaliating against an employee who has, quote, "made a charge, testified, assisted, or participated in any charge of unlawful discrimination under the Act." And in 2006, the Supreme Court expanded the concept of retaliation by defining adverse employment action in a broad way. If an employer's conduct, quote, "would have been materially adverse to a reasonable employee or job applicant, and the action could, quote, dissuade a reasonable worker from making or supporting a charge of discrimination, then it is an adverse employment action." And retaliatory actions may include things that happen outside of the workplace. Lively says that she and other members of the cast eagerly signed on to the movie's marketing campaign. However, she and the cast chose not to appear with Baldoni. Lively and co-star Jenny Slate unfollowed Baldoni on Instagram, and Baldoni didn't take photos with the other actors on the red carpet. And fans of the novel took note of these events. Lively also alleges that Baldoni became paranoid that the media would discover that Lively and others had complained about his conduct, and as a result, she alleges that he and Wayfarer Studios hired Melissa Nathan's firm, the agency group PR, to launch a covert digital campaign to harm Lively's reputation and suppress criticism of Baldoni. The retaliation plan included spreading false narratives on Reddit and social media designed to undermine Lively's credibility, and the complaint alleges that Nathan delivered a proposal that included, quote, "creation of a social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts." This method of engagement is called astroturfing, and it's designed to look like opinion commentary from the general public when it's actually manufactured by a particular group. Now, the complaint includes text messages between Baldoni's publicist, Jennifer Abel, and Melissa Nathan discussing the plan. Abel allegedly told Nathan that, quote, "he wants to feel like she can be buried." Nathan is alleged to have replied that, quote, "you know we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him." In text messages, Abel and Nathan discuss a Daily Mail story titled, "Is Blake Lively Set to Be Cancelled?" Nathan complimented Abel, writing, "You really outdid yourself with this piece." Nathan replied, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." The campaign allegedly included public humiliation, as marketing strategies were shifted to frame Baldoni as a supporter of survivors of domestic violence, sidelining Lively and distancing her from promotional efforts. Online comments started vilifying Lively for telling fans to, quote, "wear their florals to the movie," with many concluding that she was insensitive to domestic violence. Now, under many anti-discrimination laws, a person must file a charge of discrimination with a state or federal agency, such as the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, before they can bring a federal discrimination claim in court. This process is known as exhausting your administrative remedies. And Lively filed her initial complaint with the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. The agency will investigate and attempt to resolve the complaint through mediation, investigation, or other means. And if the agency does not complete its investigation within 180 days of when the claim was filed, then the claimant gets a right to sue letter, which allows them to file a legal complaint in court. And Lively filed her lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for New York. The lawsuit puts forth 13 causes of action, including sexual harassment, retaliation, breach of contract, intentional and negligent infliction of emotional distress, invasion of privacy, defamation, false light, failure to prevent harassment and retaliation, negligent supervision and retention, interference with prospective economic advantage, constructive discharge, and loss of consortium. Now, 10 days later, Baldoni retaliated by filing a lawsuit, but not against Lively. Instead of countersuing Lively, Baldoni pulled the bonkers move of suing the New York Times for defamation, false light, invasion of privacy, and breach of implied contracts. The plaintiffs claim that the newspaper published an article based on Lively's civil rights complaint that painted Baldoni and Wayfarer as orchestrators of a smear campaign against Lively, a claim which Baldoni alleges that the New York Times knew to be false or willfully refused to perform basic fact-checking. According to the complaint, the New York Times article intended to construct a fictitious narrative built on misrepresented, altered, and cherry-picked communications, falsely depicting Baldoni's common professional interactions as malicious. For example, Baldoni said that after he raised reasonable concerns about his capacity to lift Lively's body weight during a dancing scene, she threatened to quit the production out of personal offense, effectively holding everyone's job hostage. Heath and Baldoni then alleged that Lively, fearing she would be recast, concocted a scheme to make them the villains. Quote, to highlight the effects of masterful gaslighting, Baldoni and Wayfarer also truly believed that in an effort to save herself from the backlash of being recast, Lively could leak that she felt fat-shamed by Baldoni, which he thought would ruin his career. Baldoni says he has evidence that all of the interactions we've highlighted were consensual or mischaracterized. For instance, Baldoni says he has text messages showing that she invited him into her trailer while she was breastfeeding. But Lively alleges that she never said she wouldn't allow anyone to be near her when she was breastfeeding or pumping. Rather, the complaint says, quote, Ms. Lively often had to work while breastfeeding, which she felt comfortable doing so long as she was given the time and space to cover herself. She did this frequently because she was not given breaks to feed her baby, but Miss Lively did not expect or consent to anyone entering her private spaces while topless, exposed, and vulnerable with her newborn, or during body makeup application or removal. Baldoni's complaint claims that Lively and the newspaper collaborated to construct a defamatory narrative to harm Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios while enhancing Lively's public image. The plaintiffs thus seek damages in the amount of $250 million for the harm caused by the publication and its impact on their professional and personal lives. And I will remind you, the dollar amount that's included in a complaint is always just pulled out of thin air. It doesn't mean anything. Now, the lawsuit was filed in California, which strategically makes no sense. California has one of the strongest anti-SLAPP laws in the US, and under California's Code of Civil Procedure, defendants can quickly seek to dismiss lawsuits that target protected free speech or petitioning activities, particularly those connected to public interest matters. And if the defendants prevail, they may also recover attorney's fees and costs. Now, either way, the story is probably only going to get messier because Colleen Hoover already published a sequel novel called It Starts With Us. But if the sequel movie is ever going to happen, it's going to start with them in court. But as the incriminating text messages between Baldoni's PR agents show, you need to be careful what information is available online. And you should probably remove as much of your info as you can, which you can do with today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni removes your personal data from online data brokers by reaching out directly and forcing them to take your personal info down. If these data brokers fight back, Incogni will take care of that too, because Incogni fights back. These data brokers are one of the reasons why in the US, you can search your name and find a bunch of websites that will give anyone your home address, phone number, and extensive history. It's shocking to see just how easy it is to find all this information. It also might be why you're getting so many spam calls lately, or even how someone might steal your identity. But Incogni is a great way to fight back, increase your online privacy, and cut down on those annoying scam calls and emails that used to flood my voicemail and inbox. Now, I've been using Incogni for years, and in that time, you can see I've been on hundreds of lists, some of which had a high sensitivity score, meaning that the broker had tons of data on me. Luckily, Incogni has completed hundreds of takedowns for me over the years and is processing dozens of others. If I were to try this myself, it would take hundreds, if not thousands, of hours. So thank you to Incogni for saving me tons of time and adding my name to over 40 suppression lists. And Incogni will continue to conduct ongoing removals because even if the data broker removes your data once, they can collect it again. Incogni makes sure that your personal information stays off the market for good. So if online privacy is important to you, give Incogni a try. If you click on the link that's on screen or down below, you can try Incogni risk-free for 30 days and get a full refund if you're not into it. But if you are, you can use the code LegalEagle for an exclusive 60% off discount. So get an exclusive 60% off discount by just clicking on the link that's on screen or down in the description and using the code LegalEagle. After that, click on this link over here for more LegalEagle, or I'll see you in court.